Hi, welcome back. So, I want to talk about resumes today. I get maybe at least 10 DMs asking me to redo your resume. And resumes are really, really important documents, but I always push back and I don't support people with their resumes only because what happens is that when you have someone else do your resume, they end up putting all these big words, these big numbers, these metrics, and it sounds really good. And you're like, yes, I would hire me, they should hire me, let's all get together. But what happens is when someone does your resume without too much input from you and without you actually narrating your own story, you might get a call back. But I know some of y'all are gonna dislike this. If you want a six-figure job, you're most likely going to go through at least 5 interviews. The first interview is the recruiter. And what are they looking for? They are looking to see if your resume and your actual story align. And they ask you very simple questions. And they disarm you, and you just start chatting. And next thing you're like, wait, did I just disqualify myself? And the answer is yes, yes, you did. That's why they don't call you back, because your resume seems like you're the perfect fit, but then your talk track doesn't align. So rather than doing all this work, getting the call, getting excited just to be let down, I recommend, and take it or leave it, that you actually invest in time spent with either a coach or with yourself of actually really sitting down and saying, what are my skill sets? What have I done? And I know for me, when I was moving over to my latest job, I was laid off and then I took a year off. So when I came back to the job process, I was a bit rusty because I had all the shame and all that stuff that comes with being laid off. And then I also was reading everything about people having a really hard time getting a job. And I was like, well, will anyone hire me? But what I did was when I started writing my resume, I literally went back and I was like, I brought TikTok to my old company. Because of me, they were able to increase their pipeline by over 400%. They took that to the board, and the board gave them more money. That is a solid win. Okay, right? So I thought that to myself. I thought about how I helped over 1,000 people land jobs. These 1,000 people did not have 4 year degrees. I was like, okay, that's a pretty big win itself. I thought about all the people I trained who came into the company. I thought about all the different clients and their recommendations and how they sung my praises. And by doing this exercise, several things happened. Not only did I heal myself because I was just like, oh, I actually am good at my job, right? Because when you're laid off, even though it's supposed to like not be personal, it kind of feels like it. I'm not good enough, right? So by doing an exercise like this, you remind yourself that you are that girl, you are that person, right? And then as you keep doing it, and then you attach it to some other things, like maybe listening to podcasts, like maybe reading corporate reports. You start also understanding the language of where you want to pivot to. So with your understanding of your strengths, with the language of where you're trying to go to, you mesh that together, and next thing you know, you're at the offer letter and you're negotiating a sign-on bonus. You're negotiating 20, 30K more in your base salary. You're negotiating more equity. That is how the girls are winning, right? So I really wanted to take some time and discover that, because it really truly is a blessing when you understand what you bring to the table and when you're able to say, this is what I've done, and I can explain it. I can give you examples, I can give you emotion. And then what happens too is that a lot of people also ask me around interviews and how do you interview well. And the secret to interviewing well is not memorizing. And I know you can go to chat, you can go to Claude, you can go to Gemini, and you can tell it to give you interview questions and answers, and it will. And you should probably try it. But if you try to memorize that, what happens is that when you're in an interview, you aren't listening to what the interviewer is telling you, because you just want to get to the point where you can tell them what you memorized. And then this becomes a really difficult conversation to have, because you're not having a conversation. You are simply regurgitating, right? But if you do the exercise of understanding your skill sets, what happens is that you are able to walk into the room and simply have a conversation, meaning that you're both geeking out together. right? So you're able to listen and respond to what they're saying. And everyone wants to be heard. I think sometimes we feel like hiring managers or whoever's on the other side of the screen is this, when you're younger and you think your teacher is like not human, like not that they're like alien, but at the same time, like you don't see them as like a person. I feel like when we're interviewing, we kind of do the same thing to our interviewers, and we put them in this other category. But the quicker we not only ground ourselves in who we are and what we bring to the table, we also remember that the person interviewing us is literally also just here to get paid, right? And maybe they also have some interest in what we're doing. It makes a conversation so much easier. I know for me, when I was applying for jobs, I talk a lot about my background. And my background is I grew up in a household. My mom's a teacher. My grandmother started one of the top schools in Ghana, and she obviously was teaching it and doing that her whole life. My great grandmother was a teacher. So, literally, education is so core in who I am. And then you bring my father into the whole situation. So, my father is an immigrant and he has a third grade education and he speaks over 7 languages, right? But he does not have the most capable literacy, meaning he cannot read and write in English. So growing up, I had to watch my dad, even though he could speak 7 different languages, struggle to navigate the world, right? And so he had to learn as an adult how to read and write in English. So because of that, adult learning is like really, really important to me and really core to me, right? Sharing this and then sharing all the methodologies and like the fancy stuff that comes with that is what got me all the jobs offers I got, right? It was because I had a deep passion about something. I was able to talk about that clearly and fluidly. This is why I do what I do, right? It does not matter what company I end up at. What matters is that I really truly understand this thing. And because of that, I can have a conversation with whoever also cares about it or wants me to teach other people how to do it, right? If this is not clear, let me know in the comments. But the goal here is for you to deeply understand what you bring to the table and be 10 toes down about it. Because so many people spend so much time worried about what they're not good at. And then you come in my inbox, you come to coaching sessions with me. I'm starting this Accelerator program. I'm sure y'all gonna come there too and tell me about all the things you're not good at. And I'll listen to you, I will. But unless it is detrimental to your success, I'm not gonna focus on that. We're gonna focus on what you're good at, and we're gonna pull out what you're good at, and we're gonna talk about that so much that you're gonna be like, wow, I am the Beyonce of XYZ. Because if you don't bring that energy into any room that you're in, it'll mean that you're not going to get the job. It'll mean that you're not going to get the salary raise. It'll mean fill in the blank of what you want. And the things that I know you're capable of getting exactly what you want. Because you would not be watching this right now. You would not be joining any of the workshops or the programs. So, with that said, I encourage you to share your skill sets with me in the comments. And if you're not sure, that's okay, right? This is what we work together on. This is where we figure out, based on your past experience, where have you kept showing up? Where have you been digging deeper? What is your through line? Once you figure that out, wherever you want to pivot to, you will always succeed. Right? All right. Thank you for joining today's chat. Again, let me know what you're curious about. Let me know what you're concerned about in the chats. And I will be posting more of these videos. So definitely do that. And obviously, some of you are already in my inbox, so feel free to email me with more questions.